I like this one because it was a good how-to background story. And that goes to Paul McLean for treatise on doing off-road road.
A friend of mine who worked at Wheel Goods was at a New York bicycle show in about 1975, and he was asked by the Raleigh factory agent that was at the show, why is it that Minneapolis-St. Paul area orders more Raleigh tourists than Chicago, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Houston combined? And of course, well, what's the answer? I bet everybody here has their own story why that is. So they are around, and people are, of course, a little frustrated with them because, as collectible as they seem, they don't seem very rideable because of the brakes. Well, the brakes weren't really set up correctly in the first place. Some poor fellow was given an hour to set them up in a bicycle shop. He's never ridden one. And some of the very simple mechanical principles just aren't apparent that quickly to somebody who hasn't even ridden one. The brakes are probably not going to be satisfactory when you get a bike. First, make sure the wheels are straight, and then second, make sure all your linkage is free to do what it needs to do. There's little lock nuts, and then don't let the actual brake end up resting up against the guide, because in proper condition, the spring action should be free. There should be no mushiness. You can straighten out the linkage. Just how wonderful British steel is for being able to be straightened. It's a very satisfying thing to get your linkage straightened. And then do remember. Oh my!
It's a gentleman's event. All I did was raise my glass.
And remember, the unique thing about rod brakes is that they are not self-equalizing, self-centering like a cable or a center pull or side pull. You have to take time, like they had in the old days, to be patient and get it set up right so that both brake blocks on both sides of the wheel hit at the same time. And any creative way you can file away at something if you want. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll change the contour of a brake block by running it on a wire wheel just a little bit to get it to the shape. But you have to get those brakes manually by yourself to both hit at the same time. And they'll stay there for years. They will.
Only last like 30, 40 years once you get it set.
One more thing that's I see all the time is, especially with the front wheel, and you know how important front brakes are, the brake shoe will be set up in the front. Well, when it's set up in the front, the brake block is being pushed away from the rim. But if you get it set up towards the rear, it gets pulled into the rim, and that's in order to do that you have to flip things around and drop the guides down, and do remember that your bolts here are probably already stripped. These bolts do not. They're kind of like cotter pin nuts. They're only there to hold it there once you've got it there. And I cheat and use little vice grips to get it clamped down into position. And even then, I have to forsake a little bit on the paint job, and I'll take a plastic mallet and just sort of tap things sideways a little bit or something to get them right. So.
One other thing I heard is that people will clamp down too hard with their hands if they got an emergency stop. So you'll see these levers bent. They'll twist here. Right. They bend up too close to the grip. And so you may have to bend it back down to get the travel you need. So.
Yeah. Well, that's true. And if you have any play in these, sometimes these bosses that the brake handle pivots in will be loose up and down. Well, you take things apart. Hopefully, if you turn it a half a turn, 180 degrees, it'll tighten up. If these things pivot, there's nothing you can do to compensate for that, because you need to get everything all rigid. And you got a good foundation then for.
Don't ask for that at your local bike shop.
No.